Dark matter is a true ghost of the cosmos. Scientists are convinced that it makes up more than 80% of the total mass of the universe, yet it is impossible to see. It does not interact with light. We know about it only through indirect signs. It causes galaxies to rotate faster than they should. It is like noticing the movement of the wind through swaying trees, even though the wind itself is invisible. The mystery of dark matter is one of the greatest enigmas of modern physics. Perhaps someday humanity will learn to sense it and then understand what our cosmos is truly made of. There is one thing that all surgeons think about: how to work under bright lights so that shadows do not interfere. After all, if even a small shadow from a hand appears over the patient, something might be overlooked. That is why surgical lights are designed in a very special way. They do not have just one bulb, but rather a whole cluster of small light sources directed at different angles. Each beam overlaps the shadow from another, resulting in perfect illumination without a single spot. This is not just technology, but a true marvel of engineering. Thanks to such a clever design, surgeons see everything down to the smallest details, and the patient's life literally becomes brighter. Saudi Arabia imports camels from Australia. Once, these animals were brought to the continent for transporting goods, and over the course of 100 years, their population grew into huge herds. Now, Australian camels are considered some of the most resilient and strong, and they are exported back to the Middle East, the very place they originally came from. It creates a true historical cycle. These animals assist people both in deserts and on farms, and they also participate in races. The story of Australian camels reminds us that nature and civilization intertwine in remarkable ways, often creating completely unexpected connections. If you found yourself on the surface of the moon and looked up at the sky, you would be in for a real shock. First of all, there would be no familiar blue sky, only an endless black void, as there is no air or atmosphere on the moon. But the most impressive sight is the view of Earth. It hangs above the horizon as a huge, shining sphere that appears 13 times larger than the moon looks from our planet. This contrast is striking. We are used to a small dot in the sky, while up there, Earth itself seems colossal. Photos do not capture this, as cameras distort the scale. But if you were to see it with your own eyes, I am sure it would take your breath away. The Sahara is not just a sandy desert, but an entire continent of heat. Its area exceeds 9 million square kilometers, which means it is almost equal to the United States or China. In summer, temperatures reach 58 degrees, and during the day, the sand burns so intensely that even metal objects melt. However, contrary to myths, the Sahara is alive. Plants grow here, Tuareg tribes roam, and jackals sing at night. When the sun sets, the desert transforms into an endless sea of stars, bright and silent. And you suddenly understand why people have considered the Sahara a place of power for centuries. It is both frightening and mesmerizing at the same time. Did you know that your keyboard can be dirtier than a toilet seat? Scientists have conducted dozens of studies and concluded that crumbs, dust, and millions of bacteria accumulate under the keys. Especially if you often eat at your computer, your keyboard becomes a cozy home for microbes. Sometimes it has more bacteria than the doorknobs in a public restroom. But don't rush to throw away your laptop. All it needs is a little care and some wet wipes. Wipe the keys at least once a week, and you will get rid of those unwanted neighbors. This fact serves as a great reminder. Technology is cool, but even gadgets need hygienic care. The Greenland shark is a true long liver of the oceans. Scientists have discovered that it can live up to 500 years, making it one of the longest living vertebrates on Earth. Its slow metabolism and life in the cold waters of the Arctic help its body age incredibly slowly. Some individuals swam in the ocean when the Egyptian pyramids were still being built. To determine the age of the sharks, researchers study the crystals in their eyes, much like the rings of a tree. These mysterious creatures seem like guardians of antiquity, living in depths where time flows differently. Perhaps within their slowness lies the secret of longevity that humans have yet to understand. Once, boxing matches lasted not 12, but a full 15 rounds, and it was one tragic story that changed the rules forever. In 1982, American Ray Mancini faced Korean boxer Kim Duk-koo. Their fight was so grueling that after the final round, Kim lost consciousness and soon died from his injuries. This event shocked the entire sports world. Mancini left boxing, Kim's mother could not bear the grief, and the referee later took his own life. After this drama, the Boxing Federation decided to reduce the number of rounds to 12 to lower the risk of severe injuries. Since then, the sport has become somewhat safer, but the memory of that tragedy lives on in history forever. You have probably heard that not only humans like to unwind sometimes, but who would have thought that dolphins also know how to enjoy themselves? They have found a rather unusual way. They use pufferfish, those very bulging-eyed fish that inflate when threatened. When the fish gets scared, it releases a substance that is slightly toxic and induces a state of euphoria in dolphins. These clever sea creatures carefully pass the bulging-eyed toy to each other, like a cigar, and enjoy the effect. Scientists have observed this behavior multiple times, and now no one doubts. Even in the ocean, there are those who like to relax after a long day. You have probably heard about the norm, 10,000 steps a day. But here's a surprise. It is not a scientific rule at all, but a marketing ploy from the 60s. A Japanese company released a pedometer called Manpo-kei, which translates to 10,000 steps. The slogan turned out to be so successful that it became a global standard. In reality, each person needs their own norm. Some are fine with 5,000, while others may need 15. The important thing is not the number, but the movement. So don't blame yourself if you didn't reach the 10,000. It's just a nice legend that has encouraged millions of people to walk more, and thus to be a little happier. If the sun were to suddenly disappear, we would not realize it immediately. For a full 8 minutes, the Earth would live in an illusion. Light and warmth would continue to travel by inertia. This is because even rays of light and gravity move at the same speed. Only after 8 minutes would the planet plunge into darkness, and its orbit would begin to collapse. Imagine, in that brief time, humanity would receive a grace period, the last moments under the sun. After that, the Earth would become a cosmic wanderer, a cold sphere drifting into nothingness. Terrifying, yet beautiful. 8 minutes of silence before eternal night. And it is comforting to know that light, though fast, is not instantaneous. If you shout in an open field, your voice will be heard farther than it seems. In an open space without houses and trees, sound travels almost 3 kilometers. The air there is free, nothing muffles the vibrations, and your voice seems to float above the ground. But in the city, everything is different. Buildings, walls, and asphalt eagerly absorb sound, and even a loud shout gets lost after just 300 meters. One could say that the metropolis consumes sounds. That's why in the mountains or steppe, the voice sounds so pure and powerful that it feels like nature itself is responding to you. It's no wonder ancient tribes shouted to send signals. Their echo could indeed be heard for kilometers. In movies, throwing cards looks impressive. The hero hurls one, and it slices through the opponent's skin. But can an ordinary playing card actually injure a person? Science says no. Even the most skilled throwers can only propel a card to a maximum speed of 120 kilometers per hour. To cut through skin, a speed of around 700 kilometers per hour is needed. That's faster than many sports cars. The card is too light to accumulate that kind of energy. So if you ever decide to practice your throwing skills, you can rest assured. The most you will do is impress your friends with your accuracy, not the force of your throw. Here's a truly terrifying fact. A crocodile can digest even metal. Its stomach produces such a powerful acid that it dissolves bones, shells, and accidentally swallowed nails. In nature, this helps the predator absorb everything it eats, leaving no chance for its prey. Sometimes a crocodile intentionally swallows stones to weigh down its body and dive better. Scientists believe that in terms of digestive power, crocodile gastric juice is second only to laboratory acids. So the phrase iron stomach is not a metaphor, it is literally their superpower. With such digestion, this ancient reptile has survived for millions of years, hardly changing since the time of the dinosaurs. Now imagine that one morning on Earth there are no women left. Everything would look the same. The sun rises, cities bustle, but humanity would already be doomed. Without women, life cannot continue. No invention can replace the ability to give birth to new life. In 10 years, only children will remain on the planet. In 100, only elderly men. And in just a few more decades, silence. Nature will gradually reclaim the earth. Forests will cover the cities, and animals will roam freely through the streets. Without women, our species will simply vanish, and the planet will breathe a sigh of relief and begin a new, already uninhabited chapter in its history. Forget the myth about goldfish having a memory span of 3 seconds. That is not true. In reality, they can remember events for several months. Fish can recognize their owner, distinguish colors, and even navigate simple mazes. Scientists trained them to swim to the feeder on cue, and the fish clearly remembered where their meal awaited them. So beneath that shiny scales lies a quite clever mind. Next time you look into the aquarium, remember, your fish may recall how you were late feeding them yesterday. A small brain does not mean a small mind. Every goldfish proves that. Have you ever wondered if the light from your flashlight reaches the moon? It turns out it does, but in a microscopic amount. If we imagine that 200,000 photons leave the flashlight, only one will reach the lunar surface. The rest scatter in the atmosphere and the emptiness of space. And yet, that single photon will travel nearly 400,000 kilometers in just 1 whole and 2/10 of a second. This means that even a faint beam directed into the sky can touch the moon, albeit imperceptibly. It's like a small handshake between a person and the cosmos, modest, yet incredibly poetic. The word pixel seems modern and technical, but it hides a simple logic. It is derived from the expression picture element. Pixels are tiny dots of light that together create everything you see on the screen. Photos, videos, text. If you zoom in closely on the screen, you will see small squares of red, green, and blue colors. In their combination, any image is born. Essentially, a pixel is the atom of the digital world. Just as chemical elements form the universe, pixels create the visual reality around us. And the more there are, the clearer and more realistic the image becomes. Yes, it is true. Some turtles breathe through their rear. More precisely, through their cloaca, a universal opening that they use for breathing, excretion, and reproduction. Underwater, these turtles absorb oxygen directly through thin walls, allowing them to stay submerged for hours. This is especially true for the Australian Fitzroy River turtle, which has been nicknamed the butt-breathing turtle. Nature has devised incredible ways to survive, and this is one of the most exotic. So if a turtle seems slow, remember, it is just conserving its breath and doing everything in its own way, unhurried and with character. The brightest star in the night sky is Sirius, and it can be seen even in a large city. Its brightness is so strong that the ancient Egyptians used it as a guide to know when the Nile would flood. Sirius is located in the constellation Canis Major, which is why it is also called the Dog Star. The distance to it is 8 light years, and yet the light you see began its journey long before your birth. When you look at Sirius, you are actually peering into the past. This star is not just an ornament of the sky, it serves as a beacon reminding us of the vastness of the universe and how tiny humans are in the grand scheme of things. In New Zealand, there is a real wizard, officially appointed by the government. His name is Ian Brackenbury, and since the 1990s, he has held the title of Wizard of New Zealand. He appears on the streets in a robe and hat, puts on shows, chats with tourists, and preaches joy and kindness. The government even pays him a symbolic salary for spreading magic and positivity. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it is pure truth. Ian has become a local legend and reminds us that miracles are nearby if we are willing to believe in them. After all, perhaps a little magic really does make the world a better place. History has seen cases where everything a person earned vanished overnight. During the revolution in Russia, the government nationalized property, and thousands of people lost their homes, land, and savings. Imagine saving your entire life, buying an apartment, gold, stocks, only for the state to decide that everything now belongs to everyone. The money cannot be returned, and documents become worthless. In the modern world, the risk is lower, but not non-existent. That is why gold is referred to as the currency of the gods. It is not subject to inflation and does not depend on banks. Keeping it at home is risky, but storing it in a vault is quite reasonable. This is not an investor's advice, but simply a lesson from history. Sometimes what is tangible proves to be more durable than what is digital. You have probably noticed that a cold often comes and goes whenever it pleases, despite tablets and lemon teas. The secret is that there is simply no real cure for a cold. This is because the culprits behind the illness are not bacteria, but viruses. Antibiotics easily kill bacteria since they live outside of cells. However, viruses are trickier. They penetrate directly inside and use the cell as both a home and a factory. If one tries to destroy the virus, they will also have to destroy the host cell. Moreover, these tiny parasites constantly mutate, turning into new versions that old medicines cannot combat. Therefore, doctors simply say, we treat not the cold itself, but the symptoms, and only our own immune system can help deal with the virus. Scientists can determine the weight of distant stars and planets without leaving the observatory. Imagine, they do not have giant scales, but they have formulas and observations. When a planet orbits a star, its speed and orbital radius reveal the mass of both, like an invisible dance that allows one to calculate the strength of the partners. Everything relies on gravity, as it governs the movement of bodies in the universe. Astronomers use telescopes to detect the slightest shifts in light and fluctuations, and from these they make calculations. Of course, this is not precise kilograms, but rather an estimate. Yet it helps to understand how powerful a star can be. For example, one capable of holding dozens of planets in its orbit. Beneath the surface of the Earth lie entire underground oceans, vast reservoirs of water at depths of hundreds of kilometers. Scientists have discovered that minerals in mantle rocks contain moisture, the volume of which may exceed the amount of water in all the seas and rivers. This water does not flow like an ocean, but plays a colossal role in geological processes. It softens the movement of tectonic plates and influences volcanoes and mountains. Thus, our planet is a gigantic sponge, with a secret watery heart beating within its depths. One day, we may learn to harness these hidden resources and gain a new perspective on the origins of the oceans. It turns out that the human brain has a limit on the number of friends. We can maintain close relationships with about 150 people. This number even has a name, Dunbar's number. It all comes down to the neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for social connections. Beyond this point, the brain simply overloads and cannot keep all relationships in focus. Therefore, no matter how many followers we have, genuine connections are always limited. Interestingly, even in ancient tribes, groups rarely exceeded 150 people. Apparently, evolution knew how much friendship we could handle. So, while likes are nice, true closeness is always a rarity. Goosebumps are a greeting from our hairy ancestors. When ancient humans were covered in thick fur, the muscles at the base of the hair would raise them to appear larger in front of predators and to retain heat better. Now we have almost lost our hair, but the mechanism remains. So when you listen to your favorite song or watch a touching movie and feel goosebumps, it is an echo of the wild nature within your body. Modern science calls this the piloerection reflex, but we simply say, "We got goosebumps." It is amusing that even after thousands of years, we still carry tiny traces of ancient instincts within us. One of the most popular toy inventors in the world worked as an engineer for NASA. His name is Lonnie Johnson, and he is the creator of the legendary Super Soaker water gun. The idea came to him by chance while he was testing a cooling system for spacecraft. A jet of water burst forth with such force that the engineer realized it would make a great toy. Thus, a serious scientist who designed systems for the Galileo and Cassini missions brought millions of joyful moments to children. Lonnie's story reminds us that true discoveries are not divided into adult and children's. Sometimes even space engineering leads to a fountain of fun. Our brain is a true gluttonous champion. It weighs only about 2% of body mass, but consumes 20% of the body's total energy. This is why, after challenging mental tasks, we feel fatigue, as if we have run a marathon. The brain uses energy not only for thinking, but also for maintaining memory, concentration, and emotions. Interestingly, in moments of inspiration or love, brain activity literally sparks like a string of lights. So, mental exhaustion is not a myth, but a real physical effect. Take care of your brain, nourish it with oxygen, sleep, and curiosity, and it will reward you with brilliant ideas. Sometimes adults wake up at night and, in horror, discover that they have wet the bed. And yes, this happens, although it is extremely rare. This condition is called nocturnal enuresis in adults, and it affects less than 0.1% of people. The reasons vary: stress, sleep disturbances, or kidney issues. Usually, doctors advise not to panic. It is not shameful and can be treated. Still, the feeling of being a child again can be disorienting. Interestingly, even our adult brains sometimes forget to turn off childhood reflexes, especially when tired. The main thing is to remember that the body is a complex system, and it sometimes just malfunctions, reminding us that a little child still lives within us. The film about Harry Potter almost became a children's nightmare. The original depiction of Voldemort was so frightening that psychologists advised the directors to soften it. Imagine a monster with sharp teeth, elongated features, and eyes filled with madness. Children could have been terrified to fall asleep for a long time. In the end, the creators removed some of the horror, making Ralph Fiennes' face more human, yet still unsettling. Thus, the villain remained frightening but not traumatic. Interestingly, even slight changes in facial expressions and skin color can evoke a storm of emotions in a child. The psychology of cinema is indeed powerful. In ancient Greece, confessing love was surprisingly simple. One had to throw an apple at the person. If they caught it, it meant the feelings were mutual. This beautiful gesture was associated with the goddess Aphrodite, a symbol of beauty and passion. Imagine, instead of messages and likes, a gentle movement of the hand, and everything is clear without words. Sometimes apples were even used at weddings as a sign of prosperity. Nowadays, we certainly express our feelings differently, but the idea remains, to give something simple yet sincere. Perhaps we should revive this charming custom. After all, an apple of love sounds much more romantic than a bouquet of roses. Imagine a crossword the size of a room. In Japan, a puzzle has been created that includes 66,666 clues. It took 4 years to create, a titanic effort, much like its name. The author, the renowned master Nomio, made it for the sake of art, not for a record. Today, this giant is housed in a museum and published as a book, so that anyone interested can admire human perseverance. The crossword serves as a reminder that the love for puzzles knows no bounds. Sometimes a person simply wants to prove that there is no puzzle too large for a curious mind. The oldest musical instrument in the world is a flute made from the bone of a griffon vulture, which is over 35,000 years old. It was found in a German cave, and the thought of how ancient humans carved holes with a stone knife is exhilarating. Imagine, by the fire sits a primitive musician playing simple melodies, and the sounds of his flute echo through the cave. This is not just music, it is the beginning of art, the human soul and communication without words. The griffon vulture bone flute proves that the urge to create emerged long before writing and civilizations. It literally sings with the voice of antiquity, which is still heard through the millennia. The longest word in the English language is the chemical name of the protein titin, which consists of 189,000 letters. Pronouncing it in full would take several hours. Of course, scientists use abbreviations, as such a word would not be suitable for a book or conversation. But its length is astonishing. It reflects the incredible complexity of living organisms. Titin is responsible for the elasticity of muscles, and without it, we would not be able to move. So behind this linguistic monster lies not just a record, but a crucial part of our biology. Sometimes the most enormous is hidden in tiny molecules. Sometimes laws and numbers play with the imagination just as well as fiction. Imagine, in October of the year 2024, a court ruled to fine the company Google $2.5 decillion. That number has 33 zeros. Even if we gathered all the money on the planet, it wouldn't be enough to cover even 1/100th of such a fine. Of course, this is not a real payment, but rather a symbolic punishment highlighting the scale of the case. It resembles a sentence of 800 years in prison. It sounds severe, but it's clear that no one will live that long. All of this illustrates how fantastical legal formulations can sometimes be, and how difficult it is for the human mind to comprehend such enormous numbers. Once, erasers did not exist, and mistakes were erased with ordinary bread. People would take a piece of fresh dough and carefully rub it on paper to remove pencil lines. The soft texture of the bread acted almost like a rubber eraser. It absorbed graphite. Of course, such erasers crumbled quickly, and artists had to constantly replace them. But the idea worked. It was not until the 19th century that the rubber eraser was invented, and the world breathed a sigh of relief. Imagine if we were still bringing a loaf of bread instead of a pencil case to math class. This story reminds us that inventions are born from the simplest things. Today, it is almost impossible to imagine an entire army disappearing without a trace. Even in the most brutal wars, there are always survivors. But in ancient times, things were different. For instance, during the time of the Roman Republic, one of the armies of Carthage was completely destroyed. The same happened in the 15th century at the Battle of Agincourt, where English archers literally wiped the French army off the face of the earth. Back then, wars were fought to the last breath, and mercy was not in fashion. Nowadays, armies are too large and organized to be completely annihilated. History has simply taught humanity that total destruction is a path to nowhere. Penguins can drink seawater without suffering from the salt, all thanks to a special gland above their eyes. It filters the salt, expelling it through their beaks in the form of tiny droplets. This way, these amusing birds can live along the Antarctic coasts without searching for fresh water sources. Imagine drinking the ocean and feeling great. Sounds like a superpower. Penguins have proven that even in the harshest conditions, nature finds elegant solutions. Perhaps that's why they are so charming. They waddle in tuxedos, don't freeze on the ice, and drink salty water as if it were champagne. Let's travel to distant Australia, where one day they decided to tackle alcoholism in a rather unusual way. In the town of Nano, local authorities launched a unique anti-alcohol lottery. Imagine this: police officers stop drivers and check if they are sober. If everything is fine, the driver's name is added to a special list. Every day, one lucky winner is chosen from this list, and they receive $1,000. Naturally, many people wanted to enter the sober draw, and the level of alcohol consumption in the town sharply decreased. The simple idea of replacing fines with rewards worked better than any prohibitions. Sometimes, to overcome a bad habit, it is enough to make sobriety simply rewarding. When we think of penguins, we imagine cute little ones in tuxedos, but the real penguins were quite different. The species of ancient birds, known as Penguinus impennis, went extinct in the 19th century. They were taller and larger than modern penguins, could not fly, and lived in northern seas. People hunted them for their meat and feathers, and soon these birds disappeared. Later, scientists found similar but genetically different creatures in Antarctica, and without much thought, gave them the same name. Thus began the great misunderstanding. We have come to consider them true penguins, even though they belong to a completely different species. Interestingly, this confusion remains even in textbooks, as if history has rewritten nature itself. The Hawaiian alphabet can be learned in one day. It has only 12 letters. 5 vowels and 7 consonants combine to create soft melodic words, which is why the Hawaiian language sounds like a song. Interestingly, the Hawaiians originally had no written language. It was developed by missionaries in the 19th century to record the local language. Thanks to the short alphabet, every word in Hawaii sounds open and rhythmic, and most names flow like a melody. Even a simple phrase like aloha conveys a whole range of feelings: greeting, kindness, and warmth. The small number of letters turned out to be not a drawback, but a highlight of the culture, as hundreds of beautiful words emerge from 12 sounds. For us, a kilometer is just a familiar distance, but when viewed through the eyes of an ant, everything changes. For the tiny insect, the same kilometer feels like 200 kilometers by human standards. For the ant, the journey to the neighboring city becomes a whole adventure. On the other hand, for giants like dinosaurs, the situation is the opposite. The same kilometer seems to them half as short. It all comes down to the scale of perception. Each living organism perceives space in its own way, based on its size and speed of movement. This fact reminds us of a simple truth. The world remains the same, but how we see it depends solely on us. Did you know that a cat's brain is almost the same as a human's? Scientists claim that the similarity in structure reaches 90%. The cerebral cortex is especially similar. It is responsible for emotions and memory. That's why cats can feel joy, sadness, jealousy, and even hold grudges. They learn quickly and remember their owner's habits. When they get up, where the food is, and when it's time to play. Perhaps that's why it seems that cats understand us. They really do analyze, but they do it in their own way, silently and with the philosopher's demeanor. Who knows, maybe cats observe us as closely as we observe them. The most poisonous animal in the world is the box jellyfish, a tiny creature with a transparent body and deadly power. Its tentacles stretch up to 3 meters and are covered with millions of microscopic harpoons that inject venom capable of killing a person in just a few minutes. It inhabits the warm waters of Australia and the Pacific Ocean, where warning signs literally save lives. When encountering it, swimming is the last thing one wants to do. Nature demonstrates how dangerous beauty can be. Scientists are studying its venom, hoping to create pain relief medications and even cancer treatments. So perhaps one day this sea monster will save countless lives. Diamond is considered the hardest substance on Earth, but even it is not all-powerful. Imagine throwing a diamond the size of a palm straight from space. The impact on the Earth's surface would be so powerful that even this super-strong crystal would shatter into dust. This is due to the colossal speed of the fall and the force of the impact. However, if the diamond is small, weighing less than 1 kilogram, it may survive. Air resistance will slow it down, and it will land much more gently. A similar principle applies to an ant. It falls from a height and remains intact because it is too light. Even nature has its own laws of fairness. The story of the discovery of penicillin resembles an accidental miracle. In 1928, Scottish microbiologist Alexander Fleming returned from vacation and found that mold had settled in one of his petri dishes. But the most interesting part was that bacteria had stopped growing around it. The scientist realized that the fungus released a substance that killed microbes and named it penicillin. Thus, chance saved millions of lives, as this discovery marked the beginning of antibiotics. Since then, medicine has changed forever. Penicillin became a symbol of how sometimes great discoveries are born not from plans, but from attentiveness and curiosity. It turns out that animals can also be allergic to humans. Sometimes cats or dogs develop a reaction to human dandruff, just as we do to fur. The symptoms are the same: sneezing, itching, watery eyes. Veterinarians even prescribe antihistamines for pets. It's amusing. A person treats an allergy to a cat, while the cat treats an allergy to a person. This biological exchange reminds us of how closely we are connected to our four-legged friends. After all, if our allergies are similar, it means we are not just neighbors on this planet, but almost relatives in biology and emotions. In France, there is a house with a negative number. In the town of Rocamadour, right beneath a sheer cliff, stands a building with a sign reading -1. When the houses in the town were numbered, everything at street level received 0 and above, while this house ended up below. Now it has become a local attraction. Tourists take pictures next to the sign and joke that people from the underground live there. The story of the -1 house proves that even ordinary things like addresses can turn into a fun legend. The key is to look at the world with curiosity, and it will offer unusual stories in return. When Americans first landed on the moon, the world erupted with excitement. However, not everyone considered it something truly beneficial. Later, a large survey was conducted in the United States, and it turned out that approximately 53% of people were proud of the achievement, while 47% questioned whether it was worth spending billions. Some saw it as a step into the future and a symbol of human potential, while others asked, "What does this mean for the average person?" This is the beauty of human nature. Even the greatest victories are perceived differently. But the fact remains, the moon has become a part of our history forever. Imagine the oldest vegetable on Earth, the common pea. Scientists have found evidence that people cultivated it as far back as 9,750 years before our era. These tiny green seeds have accompanied humanity since the days when mammoths roamed the planet. Peas were grown in ancient Persia, Egypt, and India, and then they spread across the world, becoming an integral part of cuisine. Just think, when you eat pea soup, you are tasting the same food as our distant ancestors. This humble vegetable has become a symbol of nature's resilience and how simple things can be the most enduring. Peas have proven that to make history, one does not need to be flashy. It is enough to be useful. You certainly did not expect to hear such things about Nobel Prize winners. It turns out there is even a humorous, yet quite real phenomenon known as Nobelitis. Some scientists, shortly after receiving the prestigious award, seem to lose touch with reality. They begin to consider themselves smarter than everyone else and sometimes make bizarre statements. One insists that raccoons are abducting him, while another claims to be communicating with aliens. Psychologists explain this not as madness, but as a peculiar effect of fame, when, after a grand success, a person stops seeing the limits of what is possible. Even the greatest minds can sometimes fall into the trap of their own genius. Imagine, in the universe, there are more stars than grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth. Scientists have calculated that there are hundreds of billions of stars just in our galaxy, and there are billions of such galaxies. This results in a number that the human mind can barely comprehend. When you look at the night sky, it seems like you can count the stars, but in reality, you are seeing only a tiny fraction of the cosmos. Each glowing point up there is a sun with its own planets, possibly harboring life. This fact makes us tiny, and yet special, for despite the infinity, it is we who can look up and marvel. Many are surprised by the question, can a snake die from its own venom? In reality, if it bites itself, the snake remains safe and sound. Its body is already accustomed to its own venom, as it is produced by specialized glands and does not affect the source itself. Even if venom is injected into the snake's body with a syringe, nothing serious will happen. However, if venom from another snake is used, that is where trouble begins. Different types of venom vary greatly, and what is harmless to one individual can be deadly to another. Nature seems to have given each snake its own key and lock. Its venom is suitable only for itself, while that of another can be fatal. Have you ever wondered why almost all of the longest living people on Earth are women? If you look at the list of confirmed centenarians, there are simply no men among the first 50. The scientific explanation is quite logical. Female hormones better protect the heart and blood vessels, making the body more resilient to stress and illness. In contrast, testosterone in men works differently, increasing the risk of heart disease. Additionally, historically, men have participated more often in wars, worked in hazardous conditions, and faced greater risks. All of this affects life expectancy statistics. Of course, living a long life is not only a matter of biology, but also of habits, character, and a bit of luck. There are people who suffer from the invisible, quite literally. They feel that Wi-Fi, cell towers, and even microwaves cause them pain. Science refers to this as electromagnetic hypersensitivity. When a phone rings, such individuals may experience dizziness, and the presence of a rotor can trigger anxiety and a sense of pressure. Scientists have not found direct evidence of physical effects from signals, but the World Health Organization acknowledges that these people's pain is real. It is possible that their brains simply react too strongly to stress or anxiety, creating physical sensations. For them, life in the city resembles a constant storm of invisible waves, and their refuge lies in the countryside without technology. Sharks are true superheroes of the seas, as they rarely suffer from cancer. Scientists have studied their immune system and discovered remarkable substances that prevent tumor development. These ancient predators have lived on the planet for more than 400 million years, surviving dinosaurs and global catastrophes while remaining healthy and strong. Of course, sharks are not absolutely immortal, but their rare resilience has inspired medical professionals to seek new treatment methods. Perhaps in the future, the mystery of the shark's body will help humanity conquer diseases. Sometimes the answers to complex questions swim right beneath our feet, in the depths of the ocean. What would happen if you took a balloon inflated on Earth, sealed it, and released the air directly into open space? Surprisingly, you would actually add a bit of earthly air to the universe. Each molecule of oxygen and nitrogen would fly out and begin its endless journey. In a vacuum, nothing would stop it. It would travel forever, perhaps for millions of years. Of course, this microscopic volume won't change the cosmos, but the thought itself is astonishing. A piece of our planet will dissolve forever among the stars. At some point, perhaps this very molecule will find itself near a distant star and become part of a new planet. Who knows? Maybe this is how life begins. Sometimes hot water freezes faster than cold water. It sounds illogical, doesn't it? This effect is called the Mpemba effect, named after a student from Tanzania who first noticed the oddity when freezing ice cream. Scientists still debate why this happens, perhaps due to evaporation, convection, or the structure of molecules. But the fact remains, under certain conditions, warm liquid really does turn into ice before cold liquid. It's a great reminder that nature loves paradoxes. Water seems like the simplest thing in the world, yet it still manages to surprise even physicists. We will not be able to photograph our galaxy in its entirety for a very long time. To see the Milky Way from the outside, one would need to travel 500,000 light years away from it. Even if we had a ship traveling at the speed of light, the journey would take the same amount of time. For now, we can only observe from the inside, like a resident of a house who sees the walls but not the facade. Scientists dream of wormholes, tunnels in space that could transport us there in a year, but for now this remains just a theory. So a complete photograph of our galaxy is a matter for the distant future, and perhaps only our descendants will see it in 500,000 years. When we record voice today, everything seems simple. Just grab the phone, press a button, done. But the first recording of the human voice appeared back in 1860. It was created by the Frenchman Édouard Léon Scott de Martinville, and his invention was called the phonautograph. It could record sound vibrations onto paper, but at that time, no one even dreamed of sound reproduction. Only after more than 100 years were scientists able to decode the old recording and heard a voice that was over 1.5 centuries old. This was not just a historical event. It was as if time itself had spoken, and it became clear that sound, once recorded, can outlive generations. Nuclear energy often seems clean and safe. After all, power plants do not emit smoke or pollute the sky with soot. But there is a shadowy side, radioactive waste. They appear harmless, metal barrels sitting somewhere underground, but inside them lurks death. Just spending a couple of hours nearby is enough for radiation to start destroying body cells. And the most frightening part, such waste does not lose its danger for centuries. They will outlive us, cities, and possibly even entire civilizations. Scientists are searching for ways to dispose of them safely, but there is no perfect solution yet. This reminds us that behind the clean light of a bulb lies a dark side of technology that demands wisdom and responsibility. You have probably heard of the number Google, that is one followed by 100 zeros. It's an enormous number, but there is something even cooler, a Googleplex. This is 10 raised to the power of a Google. It is such an incredibly large number that even if you decided to write down all its zeros, you would run out of both paper and time, even if you wrote until the end of the universe. To grasp the scale, consider this. The number of atoms in the universe is less than the second digit of this gigantic number. Scientists love to use Googleplex as an example of how the human mind can conceive the impossible. It seems to tell us there are no limits to the universe, not even in numbers. Imagine a board game that people played more than 4,000 years ago. It was called the Royal Game of Ur and was discovered in ancient Mesopotamia. The rules resembled a mix of backgammon and checkers. Two players moved pieces across 20 squares, trying to outpace their opponent. This game was considered not just a pastime but a symbol of luck and fate. Scholars even found carved patterns on the boards that resembled astrological signs. It is astonishing how ancient people also loved to compete and spend their evenings playing board games, just like we do today. It seems that the passion for games has been in humanity's blood for thousands of years. In some Italian cities, you can hear the bridges sing, especially in ancient Venice, where metal plates are installed under the stone arches, producing sounds when they vibrate. As pedestrians walk across the bridge, each step creates a barely audible melody, as if the city itself plays music for its guests. At night, when everything quiets down, these bridges sound particularly magical, as if whispering stories from past centuries. Locals say that the sound is the voice of Venice, which cannot be silenced by time. Indeed, in a city where even the water sings in the canals, it is no surprise that the bridges have found their own way to sing. Sometimes the moon appears simply enormous, as if it is hanging right above the rooftops and illuminating everything around with a silvery light. This is not an illusion or a quirk of the camera, but a rare phenomenon called a supermoon. It occurs when a full moon coincides with the moment the moon is closest to the Earth. Since its orbit is not circular but elliptical, there are times when it comes a bit closer to us, making it noticeably larger to the eye. Scientists have calculated that on such nights, the moon looks about 1/5 larger and shines nearly 1/3 brighter than usual. In person, this sight is much more impressive than in photographs, as cameras rarely capture the magic of the nightlight that fills everything around with a soft glow. The adorable wombat, living in Australia, is famous not for its fluffiness, but for cubic droppings. Yes, its feces truly take the shape of cubes. Scientists have discovered that the wombat's intestines compress waste in a unique way, forming neat edges. These cubes do not roll down hills, allowing the animal to conveniently mark its territory. The wombat even turns physiology into the architecture of nature. That is why it has been dubbed the engineer of the forest. This amusing fact has become a favorite among tourists, and biologists are even studying the structure of its intestines to create new material pressing technologies. Nature certainly knows how to amaze. You may have noticed that snakes always seem to look straight into your soul. This is because they cannot blink. They simply do not have eyelids. Their eyes are covered by a transparent film, resembling a lens, which protects them from dust and water. Even when a snake sleeps, its eyes remain open, creating a sense of eternal vigilance. This feature helps them survive. A snake is always watching the surrounding world, even while resting. Scientists joke that snakes are the perfect guards, as they do not have a sleep mode for their eyes. However, they do not need one. Nature has equipped them with the cleverest mask of an observer. Imagine sitting in a movie theater and suddenly a scene by the sea appears on the screen. You can smell the salt and the breeze. Then the shot changes to a landfill and the room fills with a completely different aroma. No, this is not magic. It is a technology called digital scent. Scientists are already creating devices capable of releasing specific smells at the right moment, just like a printer mixes colors. Inside the device, there is a set of chemical components that can assemble any fragrance, from fresh grass to burnt popcorn, and everything is synchronized with the film's scenes. Who knows, perhaps soon movies will be something you can literally smell. The largest burger in the world was the size of a small car. It was made in the American state of Michigan, over a ton of meat patty, dozens of kilograms of cheese, onions, and bacon. Imagine it took 10 hours to cook such a monster. This burger became not just a culinary record, but a symbol of love for grand ideas. Hundreds of guests ate it, and the chefs admitted that the hardest part was flipping this mountain of meat. This record showed that even ordinary food can turn into an epic spectacle when approached with creativity. Have you ever wondered what system manages ATMs? It seems like it should be something top secret and unique, but it's not. Almost 90% of ATMs in the world run on the regular operating system Windows. Yes, that same one that runs on millions of home computers. Imagine you are withdrawing cash, and inside the machine, the familiar Windows is working away. Of course, it's not exactly the same version as the one on your laptop. There are modified, secure builds in place. Still, it's amusing to realize that almost the entire financial world operates on the same software as your old-school computer. Olive oil is not just a delicious ingredient, but a true remedy. It contains a substance called oleocanthal, which can destroy cancer cells without harming healthy ones. Scientists discovered this by observing how the oil affects cell membranes. Imagine you drizzle it on your salad and simultaneously provide your body with powerful protection. It is no wonder that the Mediterranean diet is considered one of the healthiest in the world. The people of Italy and Greece have intuitively chosen the best for centuries. Of course, there are no miracles, but a splash of olive oil in your diet is a small, tasty step towards health. You might be surprised, but in space, astronauts do not float in emptiness as movies depict. In reality, they are constantly falling towards Earth, just doing so at such a speed that the planet is always moving away from beneath them. This perpetual fall creates the sensation of weightlessness, as if the body is suspended between the sky and the ground. It seems like they are swimming in the air, but in fact, each astronaut is in constant motion along their orbit. That is why everything they drop slowly drifts away in different directions. There is no familiar gravity to stop the object. So space is not magic, but rather amazing physics, where Newton's laws turn into a true wonder. Imagine that $120 turns into $180 million. Sounds like a crazy fairy tale, right? But it actually happened. One person bought 2,000 bitcoins when each coin was worth less than 10 cents. Back then, no one really believed in this new digital currency, and now its price has increased by tens of thousands of times. The most amazing part is that the transaction is completely transparent. It can be seen on the blockchain, but the identity of the owner remains a mystery. There you have the power of patience. He simply waited several years and became a multimillionaire. And it all started with an ordinary $120 that someone could have easily spent on pizza or a movie. The most expensive currency in the world is the Kuwaiti dinar. 1 dinar is worth approximately $3.30, making it a true monetary champion. Interestingly, Kuwait's economy is not the largest, but stability and oil reserves have made the local currency particularly valuable. Locals joke, better to have 1 dinar in your pocket than a wallet full of change. Travelers are often surprised when they exchange dollars and receive tiny bills with immense value. This fact serves as a reminder that wealth is not always measured by quantity. Sometimes true strength is hidden in a small but robust currency symbol. Every touch on your phone's screen is not just a mechanical action, but a tiny electric impulse. On average, a person touches their screen about 25,000 times a day. It sounds unreal, but when you count all the swipes, clicks, and scrolls, it adds up to quite a lot. The sensor works because the human body conducts electricity. That's why the screen doesn't respond to gloves or, say, a stick. Without a living electric signal, the system simply doesn't activate. Interestingly, if you tried to unlock your phone with a dead man's finger, it wouldn't respond. Our gadgets literally sense that we are alive. Who would have thought that behind ordinary things lies so much strange and amazing? If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. There are even more incredible facts ahead that you definitely haven't heard.